Look at the moon. It's dark. Days!
I don't think you can describe it, because, you know what I was saying? It was like quiet, but then also really alive.
Stuck on a space station for a few months. That terribly more impressive.
The reason that Katy Perry is not technically an astronaut right now is because none of the people in this capsule could actually operate anything. It was all being remotely controlled.
But she needs empowerment says something sad about women, because it means that even with $1 billion, they still need a boost.
Space used to mean something. It meant danger, training, years of work, the unknown. But in 2024, it means a 10-minute joyride for the ultra-famous and ultra-connected, followed by a photo op and a monologue about how healing the stars were. And when Katy Perry, Gail King, and Lauren Sánchez took off on their historic all-female Blue Origin flight, they expected applause. What they got instead: relentless mockery from the public, from fellow celebrities, and from people like Joe Rogan, who absolutely tore the mission to pieces on air. This is the story of a space trip that was supposed to be empowering and turned into a comedy roast for the ages. Let's start with what actually happened. In early 2024, Blue Origin, Jeff Bezos' private space company, launched a short suborbital flight with an all-female crew. The team included celebrities like Katy Perry, Gail King, and Bezos' fiancée Lauren Sánchez. The goal: inspire women, send a message, break barriers. The result? A 10-minute flight that was remote piloted from Earth, lasted less time than your average coffee break, and turned into a self-congratulatory media circus the moment the capsule touched down. Katy Perry literally kissed the ground in tears. Gail King said it wasn't a ride, it was a journey. And Lauren Sánchez, floating through zero gravity, claimed she was making space for women. Cue the backlash. When Joe Rogan saw the headlines about the Blue Origin all-female spaceflight, he didn't hesitate. He didn't pause to ask for context. He didn't need to. Because to him, it was everything wrong with modern culture in one shiny, zero-gravity PR stunt. And on his podcast, he absolutely went in. The clip starts casual enough. Rogan reading the headline, "Katy Perry, Lauren Sánchez, and Gail King make history with all-women's spaceflight." He stares at it for a second, then smirks. They went to space. For what? 10 minutes? Then he starts laughing. So what did they do up there? Meditate? Float around and think about feminism in zero gravity? His guest chuckles, but Rogan doubles down. "I'm not saying women shouldn't go to space. I'm saying this wasn't space. This was a high-altitude selfie opportunity." And he's right about one thing. The mission lasted barely 11 minutes, most of it controlled from the ground. There were no flight commands, no piloting, no real danger. Just float, film, land. Then he dropped the line that went viral. "If Katy Perry started singing while I was trapped in the vacuum of space, I'd find a way to open the door." Savage, yes, but to his audience, hilarious and fair. Because this wasn't just commentary about a space trip, it was a takedown of the culture that now treats billion-dollar spectacles as emotional milestones. Rogan then turned to Lauren Sánchez, Jeff Bezos' fiancée, and the woman behind the entire idea. I mean, Jeff's girl planned it, right? You think she's got years of astronaut training under her belt? Or did Bezos just say, "Babe, want to take your friends to the edge of space?" His guest nodded. This is like when rich kids rent a party bus, except it goes straight up. The studio burst out laughing. But Rogan wasn't done. He called out the press, and how quick they were to label the event historic. They weren't exploring. They weren't researching. They were floating for TikTok content, and you're calling them astronauts? Then came the broader point, the one his audience always locks into. This is why people are checked out, because actual greatness is replaced with optics. NASA's building a moon base, and we're stuck talking about Katy Perry's makeup in orbit. And to be clear, this wasn't about hating on women in space. Rogan has publicly praised real astronauts like Jessica Meir and Christina Koch, women who logged hundreds of hours on the ISS and conducted spacewalks that truly broke barriers. But this wasn't that. You don't become a pioneer just because your seat cost more than someone else's mortgage. That line alone hit over 2 million views on X in a matter of hours. Because, like it or not, Rogan said what millions were already thinking. The Blue Origin Women in Space mission didn't elevate the cause. It just made it easier to mock. And in the age of performative empowerment, that might be the most dangerous orbit of all. If there's one unspoken rule in the world of fame, it's this: celebrities don't mock other celebrities. At least, not publicly. That invisible velvet rope tends to hold firm. Whether it's out of mutual respect, shared PR teams, or just the fear of starting a headline war, A-listers usually keep their opinions about each other off the timeline. But this time, that rule got launched straight out the airlock. Because as soon as clips from the Blue Origin space trip began circulating, the mockery didn't just come from the public, it came from other stars. And it wasn't subtle. First up was Olivia Wilde, who posted a now-deleted Instagram story featuring a freeze frame of Katy Perry dramatically kissing the ground after the capsule landed. No caption, just a gif of Tom Hanks from Apollo 13 looking confused. The message? Crystal clear. This wasn't bravery. This wasn't NASA. This was Katy playing astronaut for the cameras. Fans caught the story before it disappeared and reposted it all over TikTok and X. Within hours, Katy 13 started trending, a mashup that stuck harder than Blue Origin's official slogan. Then came Amy Schumer, never one to shy away from sarcasm. During a stand-up set just days after the launch, she riffed, "I almost got on that rocket too. They said, bring a flower, a jumpsuit, and a soft filter. I thought it was a spa retreat." She then joked she was added to the crew last minute just because she had a sparkly backpack and a motivational quote saved in her notes app. The crowd erupted, but it wasn't just comedy, it was friction. Schumer has shared stages with Gail King. She's hosted shows with many of the same producers who now push Blue Origin coverage. Still, she couldn't resist because the cringe was too strong to ignore. Then there was Martha Stewart, who didn't say much, but made it count. She reposted an old photo of herself aboard a zero-gravity simulation flight from years ago. No makeup, no glam, no VIP capsule, just her, floating with scientists, grinning ear to ear. Her caption? No daisies, no press tour, just pure weightlessness. Savage. Without ever naming names, Martha made the point better than any meme could. Real experience doesn't need a spotlight. You know the damage is real when the late-night monologues start rolling. Jimmy Kimmel opened with, "Lauren Sánchez is the first woman in history to go to space and return with better lighting than when she left." Stephen Colbert joked, "Jeff Bezos sent his fiancée and her friends into space," or as Elon Musk calls it, Wednesday. Seth Meyers quipped, "Katy Perry kissed the ground after landing, proving once again that gravity is the only thing keeping this whole stunt from floating off into full parody." The audience laughed, but underneath those laughs was something real, the shared understanding that this wasn't history. It was Hollywood in orbit. Normally, when celebrities are involved in inspiring initiatives, the rest of the industry rallies around them. Retweets, PR quotes, morning talk show praise. But this time, the silence was deafening. No big-name shout-outs, no Grammy nods, no industry tributes. And that's when it became clear. Even within celebrity circles, this trip was seen as phony. Not empowering, not historical, just a well-funded, over-filtered ego trip, wrapped in just enough girl-boss language to try and make it look meaningful. It failed. And when even celebrities are laughing at their own, the public is already miles ahead. Online, things got even more brutal. TikTok and X were flooded with memes. People compared the space pioneers to theme park tourists. Someone wrote, "They went to space and came back with more ego than oxygen." Another joked, "I've been on Soarin' at Epcot. Does that make me an astronaut too?" Critics slammed the idea that this was empowering. One viral post read, "You didn't break barriers, you broke the internet, and not in a good way." Let's talk about Gail King, who took this mission way too seriously. After the flight, she went on television and warned viewers, "Don't you dare call it a ride. It was a journey." She described it as a profound emotional experience, said it was life-changing, called it the first true milestone for womankind in space. And the reactions? Let's just say, not supportive. One commentator wrote, "If it's such a milestone, why was it remote-controlled from Earth and lasted less than 12 minutes? Another said, "A journey? I've had longer Uber rides." The tone deafness wasn't just laughable, it was insulting to real astronauts who risk their lives and spend years in training. Here's where the real comparison comes in. Real astronauts train for years. They study engineering, biology, physics. They take physical punishment, mental stress tests, isolation chambers. They're launching on missions that push humanity forward, studying deep space, testing long-term survival, working on international science goals. What did Katy Perry and her space sisters do? They floated around, took selfies, and talked about spreading love and opening space for all women. At one point, Lauren Sánchez held a daisy and whispered to the camera, "I brought this flower for Mother Earth, and we're supposed to clap?" When the backlash began, so did the defenses. Fans and crew members insisted that this mission meant something, that it was about representation, that anyone criticizing the trip was being sexist. But here's the truth. There have already been dozens of real female astronauts. Pioneers like Valentina Tereshkova, Sally Ride, Mae Jemison, women who trained, endured, and actually pushed the boundaries of science. This wasn't that. This was a billionaire's girlfriend, a pop singer, and a TV anchor boarding a pre-programmed pod and calling it a movement. The cost of the trip? Estimated $55 million per launch. For what? For influencers in custom-fitted spacesuits, floating in zero gravity for 11 minutes, to come back and give interviews like they just returned from a Mars mission. Meanwhile, most Americans can't afford a carton of eggs, but are told to be inspired because Katy Perry now feels connected to the universe. People weren't inspired. They were insulted. This flight was promoted as a breakthrough moment, but instead of opening new frontiers, it highlighted everything wrong with the current space race. It's no longer about bravery or discovery. It's about PR deals, vanity, performative activism in zero gravity. Joe Rogan summed it up perfectly. They didn't go to space. They went on a billionaire amusement ride and demanded a standing ovation. And he's not wrong. Their tagline? Take up space. But by the end of it all, even that became meme material. Take up space? You already are. They took up space. In the headlines, not in history. What was meant to be an empowering slogan turned into a punchline. Because true empowerment doesn't come from selfies or hashtags. It comes from substance. And there was none of that here. What started as a historic moment for womankind ended up as fuel for every late-night host and YouTube commentator in the game. And honestly, they asked for it. Space deserves reverence, discipline, risk, and purpose. What this flight gave us was Katy Perry singing in a capsule, Gail King demanding to be called a hero, and Lauren Sánchez holding a daisy like she discovered gravity. The world wasn't moved. The world laughed. And for once, Joe Rogan wasn't exaggerating. This is Behind the Light Stick. Subscribe for more cultural takedowns, viral commentary, and the truth no one else wants to say out loud. Because some stories, they don't orbit, they crash.